Hey guys, I'm Kent and welcome back to my channel. So I took a week's vacation and while I was gone, a whole bunch of packages showed up and actually quite a few are arriving this week. I've got the man-in-the-box brass bushings for the Swingarm to install today on my 2019 Monkey. And I'm really excited about that because I didn't previously really understand what the benefit would be of having better bushings, but having now ridden the G-Craft Swingarm on my 22 Grom, which comes with really nice bushings, those actually may be bearings, the feeling of the suspension is quite a bit different. It doesn't feel as squishy as it does on my 2019 Monkey. I don't know if squishy is a good word, but hopefully once I take off the wheel, I can show you the articulation of the Swingarm with the stock bushings because it's a piece of metal that's captured by some rubber. And while it will articulate most of the way that you want it to, it doesn't do it very smoothly. And again, comparing it to my G-Craft Swingarm is considerably different, even though I have now very nice Gears Racing suspension on this bike. So looking forward to the change that this makes. And in upcoming videos, I've got some other cool stuff. TST Industries sent me a few of their new rear sprocket for the 22 Grom. Actually, the way that these are drilled, they'll work on almost all of the new Minimotos. So interested to try a couple of different gearing configurations, as well as how awesome these new ones from TST look. I've got a GY6 motor that just arrived for my Ruckus build that I'm about to kick off. I actually just placed a really big order with the Ruck shop for a lot of the parts that I'll need for that build. I've got the DHM 149cc kit showing up this week, so I'll be getting that installed, riding it around, and then get it on the dyno to compare to the Yamanashi 140cc kit that I've got on the bike. I even have some new riding gear showing up, so I'll be doing some overviews and reviews of those as well. So anyway, lots of stuff to come up, but for now, interested in getting this man-in-the-box bushing set installed. I also ordered their installation kit, which I think really is just comprised of some bolts and big machined hardware to push out and pull in the old and new bushings. I think also I need to get a couple of these pieces in the freezer so that they're as small as possible before I press them in. So let me get that set up and get the wheel off the bike and we'll get this installation underway. All right, and really quickly, here's the product. These are the new bushings. I believe it's the outer part here that I need to put in the freezer so that it will contract as much as possible to make it easier to install. And then this is the installation kit, which again is just comprised of a couple of really big bolts and some machine pieces of aluminum. It kind of just looks like a huge socket and a couple of other smaller parts that will be used to drive out the old bushings and get the new ones in. All right, so I have the bike suspended just by the ceiling at this point, and I have a chock in the front of the bike. I found this to be one of the easiest ways when I need to take weight off half of the bike. But I wanted to explain what I meant by the rear swing arm being squishy with the stock bushings. So I've taken off the suspension and it currently still has the swing arm bolt torqued down. But in this configuration, I'm working against these rubber bushings that have it captured. So even within the range of motion that I'm usually using, it doesn't feel very good because it has a lot of resistance. With the brass bushings that I'm about to install for Man-in-the-Box, it should give me full articulation and then it lets the suspension do all of the work. Currently, it's almost like there's two pieces of the suspension at the swing arm bolt and then the suspension at the rear of the bike. So I'm not getting everything that I should be out of that nice rear suspension setup. Okay, so with the stock swing arm completely removed, the stock bushing has a metal insert and then there's rubber around the inside and then another metal insert. So again, it's kind of acting as a secondary suspension because anytime you want the swing arm to articulate, it needs to do so within the confines of how much that rubber is able to move either up or down. So we're going to pull these out and get the new ones in. Okay, so I actually started the process because I wanted to make sure I understood it before I tried to explain it myself. But this big machine piece of aluminum goes on the shoulder of the swing arm where we're going to pull the stock bushing out. Then you take the longer bolt and I'm going to put a little bit of grease on it just so that it can more easily work against the washer that's going to be rubbing against this piece of machined aluminum. And then you take this piece of steel. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on this one too. And put it over the end of the bolt. And then you take the nut. And then the process is holding the top of the bolt and then just threading down this nut as it pushes the bushing all the way out. And as you move the bushing further out, you'll take the nut off and add washers that will continually file through the swing arm until it's all the way out. The kit comes with plenty of washers, enough to move it all the way through. I'm just using a large breaker bar, and this is on the floor, so I'm able to use it as leverage against the other wrench holding the bolt. Once it starts moving, it seems that it's easy enough to do with a regular ratchet. Yep. And so there it is. Stock bushing is out. All right, so I got the right side pressed in first to make sure that I knew what I was doing. And as you can see, everything fits very well. The measurements are perfect. So the installation is actually, in my opinion, easier than the removal was. It's just a matter of using these two pieces. You start off with the long bolt, and you'll then switch down to the shorter bolt. Oh, and I still have that other piece in the freezer. Let me grab it real quick. Using some grease, greasing up the inside of the walls of the swing arm. Very frosty and fresh out of the freezer, the man-in-the-box sleeve, which is going to go on this direction. Then there's two pieces here. The one with the larger collar goes on the inside, and the one with the smaller collar fits on to the bushing. Then using the longer bolt with a washer, file that through, using the steel spacer, then adding the nut. We're just going to start cranking it this way to slide it in. You can see how easily it's going in. All right, so at this point, I'm bottoming out the longer bolt, so I need to swap it for the shorter bolt. And as I get close to the edge here, I need to flip around this outside piece so that the shoulder that's currently inside the swing arm needs to be flipped out so that it can come in all the way. Okay, so with both of the sleeves pressed in, and again, everything fits very nicely, then we just want to add a little bit more grease inside the sleeve. And then drop in the brass bushings. And that's it. So now the swing arm can rotate on these bushings instead of that rubber grommet, and should be quite an improvement in performance. Okay, so I've got the swing arm back on and I'm about to torque it down. I also didn't use the spacers that came on the stock setup. The brass fittings give it just that much more width that it's not necessary any longer. All right, and with that torque down, I now have much better articulation, and I think I'm going to be able to feel it in the suspension. So let me get the wheel back on, the springs back on, and we'll see what it feels like. All right, so I've got the bike back together, and the suspension feels much better. I feel like the suspension now is sitting all right here on the Gears Racing shocks and not at the front of the swing arm, where previously these swing arm bushings were restricting how much motion that the suspension could have. So that was a really easy install. I'm surprised how easy actually the bushings came out and the new ones went in. I only kept mine in the freezer for about an hour before I popped the new ones in. But again, in most cases, I was just using my small ratchet, and it wasn't towards the end that I was using the breaker bar just to do it really smoothly. I'm sure you could use an electric tool or an impact wrench to make it happen more quickly, but I felt really good doing it by hand and feeling it move in slowly just to make sure that nothing was misaligned or there weren't any other problems as I was putting it in. So anyway, I'll link directly to this product in the description below. Thank you everybody very much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.